Welcome to another edition of One-on-One with Mitch Lafon, the show that brings you unedited interviews with your favorite artists. This week, from Twisted Sister, it is Dee Snider. We talk about their new documentary, We Are Twisted Effing Sister. We also talk about Lemmy, David Bowie, Guns N' Roses, Metallica, pretty much anything under the sun. And normally I would say, here is Dee Snider, but he wanted to introduce the show himself. So let me turn it over to Dee to introduce this episode.
Hey, everybody, this is Dee Snider. I'm about to do an interview with Mitch. During this interview, we attempt to end the interview a number of times. I wanted you to play a drinking game. Every time we say the phrase, we're going to wrap it up with this, or we're going to finish with this, I want you to take a shot. I promise by the end of the show, you will be blotto. Okay, now start the show.
We are speaking with Dee Snider of Twisted Sister. The new documentary is We Are Twisted Effing Sister. But since this is, podcast, we can say fucking sister, right? I mean, that's what it is.
Actually, I just got an email from my podcast one, encouraging us to lose the profanity.
Really?
On our shows. Yeah, because podcasts are becoming so viable and so popular that mainstream advertisers are willing to get involved, but they won't if you have profanity on the show.
Really?
Very interesting. So it's been, the podcast is definitely a Wild West, but they are, they become hugely popular, and now serious advertisers are looking to do national endorsements, but not if you're dropping F-bombs. So I'm actually dropping the F-bombs. I'm actually dropping, meaning not using them.
No, but that's interesting because you look at Sirius satellite radio with Howard Stern, for example, and they use that all the time, and it's become more popular. I mean, it's ubiquitous. Every car has it. Interesting how they do that. Let's start with the movie. Basically, the very simple question: what was the genesis of the idea? Why did you say, "All right, we need to get this story on film"?
Well, we didn't. Okay. Even though my son, who's an up-and-coming filmmaker, has long said that this is a powerful story that needs to be told. That's Cody. He's just signing a deal with New Line for his first feature film, directing and writing. Anyway, but it was Andy Horn, a documentarian, not a fan of Twisted Sister, really knew virtually nothing. He was one of those people who had the most fleeting knowledge of, those crazy-looking guys with "we're not going to take it," that kind of thing. He was doing a documentary on Klaus Nomi, and it turned out that Klaus Nomi and Twisted Sister had a significant meeting, so to speak. It was actually a turning point in Klaus Nomi's life, sadly, for the worst. But that's another story. Anyway, and during that time, he sort of discovered, through talking to me and JJ, Twisted Sister, like, wait a minute, how long were you guys together, and what did you guys go through, and wait, what is going on here? And then he started to, peel the onion and realize that there was a story that most people do not know, and that he thought was worth telling. So he set upon doing this on his own initially, and we endorsed it and we encouraged it, and we did a show to raise some money, and we told people that we supported him if they, his crowdfunding plans. But he very much was working independently, and he was the driver on this.
Was it interesting, or was it, giving over the creative control to him? Was that scary? Did you want to not tell your story your own way?
No, as a matter of fact, I think that was one of the more, I've been a big P there, more appealing aspects of it for all of us, since we are a little bit at odds on certain subjects. We're friends and we love each other, but we definitely have our places where there's a rub. And one of them is, the original Twisted Sister versus the band that everybody knows. And which is talked about in the documentary. And the fact that Andy was completely independent, was not a friend of anybody's, a complete outsider, and he was approaching this not as a fan, so he was going to be, you couldn't have a more objective viewpoint. And one of the first things we all agreed on was we would not tell him what to show. We wouldn't tell him what to say. We wouldn't tell him what to do. We would help him with interviews and support him, but we were going to let him tell the story. He's the director, and he's an outside observer, and let's see what he has to say. So that really that was a selling point for us.
When you look at the finished product, are you happy with it? Or do you think, well, I wouldn't have said that. I would have done something different, or that's very JJ friendly in that part.
Well, you can second guess anything you want to.
Right.
You being anybody can, but I know for one thing is, like when I wrote my book, I lack objectivity. I think I've told you, when I wrote Shut Up and Give Me the Mic, the actual version is well over 700 pages long. I wrote it all myself, but I told the editor, I said, listen, you need to cut it down to 400. Because I don't know what's important and what isn't. I can't be objective here. And the same goes with this story. So I can't second guess. I look at it and go, well, I would have left that out. Or like you said, this is too much of this or too little of that. But that was the understanding between us as a band, that we would let Andy do his thing. And that was Andy's understanding with us as the subjects, that we would not interfere.
And it comes at the right time for the band, because it's sort of the cherry on top, right? This is, do you call it a farewell tour, what you're going to be doing this summer, or farewell shows, or how are you calling them?
I think Sex Pistols had the best tour title when they reunited, because we're only in it for the money. Which I thought was brilliant and honest and truthful. And it's harsh when I say that, and fans wince. They go, "Whoa, what? I can't believe you just said that. This is your art. This is your art." I did my art. I am continuing to do my art. I am continuing to create, and I have new ideas and new projects and whatever. This is my wonderful past, and I've lived it, and I struggled with it. I revisited it. Now we've revisited it for longer than it was together the first time, and I feel very comfortable with walking away. So when it was, the idea was brought up, hey, next year is our 40th anniversary of the core band getting together. What about if we get a handful of high-paying farewell shows? Would you be against doing that? I said, look, I'm done. I love you guys. I love my band. I'm proud of our legacy, but I'm moving on. But if we get some offers that are significant, hey, who am I to turn down a paycheck? That's what it is. I'm sorry, God. It sounds so brutal, but I can't be more frank and more honest. And it kind of frustrates me when people can't understand it. That I guess it's so funny. Fans have this idea of what they would be like if they were the famous one, if they were the one with the band. I remember one of my buddies telling me, he goes, I said, listen, I go places, I don't make a big deal. I wear a baseball hat for the most part. I lay low. I don't announce myself. I just like to, just go about my business. And he said to me, man, I would announce it everywhere I went. I said, what? He goes, yeah. I'd walk in and I'd make sure, I'd tell him, hey, I'm Dee Snider from Twisted Sister. I go, that is pretty funny. I guess that's how we imagine stardom to be and fame. And maybe there are people like that out there, but that's not who I am. So I have, these are long answers, Mitch.
I love long answers.
Fortunately, I'm
Less work
eloquent.
for me.
This was I never planned on being here this long. I mean, on Earth, yes, okay, people. I'm not planning on dying. I'm running a marathon, not a sprint, and I've lived my life as such. But if you see me when I testified in Washington, one of my answers to the question was, I plan to be well retired by 35. Okay, that was my plan. As it turned out, I wasn't well retired. I lost everything by 35, and I was starting over from scratch. So that part didn't happen. But my intentions were never to be doing this forever. I wanted do other things, radio and television and movies and all the things that I've been doing, and now theater. So I wanted to challenge myself. I wanted to keep being creative, but I didn't want to be forever on stage playing as Twisted Sister. And here it is. I'm going to be 61 this year, and I'm still up there, going to be up there doing it. So, there are people out there who love it, like Lemmy. God love them, and that's it, and it's right for them. It is right for them, and they should be up there as long as they want to be up there, and they should do it as long as they want. That's who should be up there. People who still are passionate about touring, passionate about performing, their songs and stuff like that. But the rest of us should just get the hell out of the way for the true blue, I mean, think of the song. God, I just answered my own question. You just have to press the button. All right, hey, Mitch, if you have to go to the bathroom, just go ahead. I'll just keep going. I'm sorry, man.
Yeah, I was just in the bathroom, actually. It's no, but
good. I didn't do good. You hid the sound of porcelain. Good for you. Which is I did an interview with Lenny Kravitz once as an aside, and I'm interviewing him, and all of a sudden I realized it's a phone interview. The acoustics are changing, and you get that echoey sound, And I go, Lenny, are you going to the bathroom? and he's like completely caught. He's like, yeah, I had to go. I said, dude, I don't know how I feel about you holding your dick while you're talking to me on the phone. I'm a confident heterosexual, but I think this pushes it. Anyway, but you go to my song "Stay Hungry," which I wrote as a very angry young man, and lyrically, it was basically a get the fuck out of the way and make room for me. To the Genesises and and all these other bands that were out there that refused to die, refused to leave, refused to get off the damn stage. And here I am doing exactly what I railed against when I was in my 20s. So I really feel disingenuous at times by just taking up space. That's how I feel I'm doing it. Whether I do it good or not, that's beside the point. There's a lot of talented young people out there. They need their moment in the sun.
Right. And of course, Twisted Sister has only gotten better from the shows I've seen recently. But you mentioned honesty. So I want to ask you, this comes from the movie. Back in the club days, there was a lot of talk about, hey, let's go smoke pot, and hey, let's go drink. And from, the onstage banter was sort of feeding that audience. And of course, you and JJ, you don't do that stuff. So you had to fake it. It had to be somewhat dishonest, but there was a purpose for it. Talk to me about those days and sort of having to just play the game.
Well, this, and this is I'm trying to find the right words here to explain it. It's not that I'm at a loss, but I'm flashing on being a closet homosexual for some reason. Okay, I'm flashing on the idea of pretending you're straight when you're gay because you're fearful of what people will think because they'll be judgmental. And when you look the way I looked and act the way I acted, people were more accepting if I was high. Like that, and I've talked about this, many times before. If you're drunk or high and you're doing something bizarre, okay, that's cool. You have an excuse. But if you're sober, you're just fucked up. And there was very much this judgment that I was afraid to tell people that I wasn't high because they would think I was nuts. And I guess I was. I guess I am. And this is the problem with the world. We live in a world, how many times have you heard this phrase? Hey, come on out and dance. Well, let me just have a few drinks.
Right. You hear that all the time.
We hear that all the time because we live in a world where we need to have an excuse for embarrassing ourselves. Right. I was embarrassing myself every single night, and I had no excuse. I'm incapable of being embarrassed now because if you see that, if you watch Weird Twisted Effing Sister, you'll see the costumes and clothes I was wearing. The guys used to look at me. I remember Eddie saying to me, "Aren't you embarrassed to go out on stage like that?" And it was so. I guess if I was hiding it. But yeah, I would, when people say, are you wasted? It was easier to say yes than for me to say, no, I'm straight, because then having, well, what the fuck is wrong with you then? If you're not high, what the hell are you doing?
And the bar owners needed you to do that because they were like, hey, tell these guys to go buy a drink. We don't want you just to sit here and be teetotalers, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, there was that element as well. You know, the bars made money off of the sale of alcohol, and I mean, and you were taking the door. So if people weren't drinking, where's the bar owner making his money? So it was, and I find it embarrassing. I do find it embarrassing looking back on it. But at the time, it just seemed like, hey, grab a beer and take a swig. I don't drink beer. It tastes like garbage to me. But I knew the minute I picked up they call Green Monsters and took a swig of a Heineken on stage, they literally ran for the bars.
Right. What were some of the other things that you had to do to keep up a visibility or a marketing angle? I mean, there was obviously some things that a record company would tell you, or just you as a person who wanted to make it says, okay, this is not me, but I've got to play this game. What were some of the, I don't want to call them the biggest lies, but the biggest charade, if you want?
Well, I mean, really, that was it.
Right.
I mean, that the idea that I was wasted when I wasn't. I mean, everything about me screamed I was wasted, and I probably should have been, but that was it. Otherwise, I was just, I was truly the angriest of young men, and my anger just grew and grew with the more rejection and the more record companies passing on us, and the more years, because as the movie shows, Twisted Sister existed for 10 years before it broke. I mean, it was just, I just got harder and harder and madder and madder. And the songs, lyrically started to reflect that more and more. And ultimately, that's the spirit that put Twisted Sister over the top. So I guess that was a means to an end, having something to bring out that kind of hostility in me, to write, oh, we're not going to take it, I want to rock, you can't stop rock and roll. Songs are these anthemic cries, I am on me. That's what it took to get me to that point, to come up with the words that reach people and to sing with the type of attitude and venom that people identified with. And then it leads to the videos. As comedic as they were, they still reflected anger and hostility towards authority in a big way.
Another scene in there is the band doing Suffragette City from David Bowie. And of course, Mr. Bowie, David Bowie, just passed away. What did he mean to Twisted Sister in terms, or to you personally, musically, image-wise, career-wise? Did you look at his career and say, okay, if he can be Ziggy Stardust this month and whatever next month, I think we can do something like that too?
Well, I didn't view him as a shapeshifter at that point. Where I come into David Bowie, is Honky Dory and Ziggy Stardust, Aladdin Sane, Pin-Ups, Diamond Dogs. So he was very locked into this hard rock androgyny. And he was the figurehead or spearhead, along with Alice Cooper, for that, and the New York Dolls in their own way, for that whole glitter and glam rock movement that happened, that erupted. And he, David Bowie, there would be no Twisted Sister without David Bowie. We played a lot of Bowie songs. He gave us a lot of inspiration. His androgyny made me feel that I could do that too. I didn't know. I knew he was married. I didn't know if he was ambiguously gay, or it was a beard, or he was a bisexual. We've heard all the stories as time went on that he was all of those things. I don't know, but at the same time, I just said, hey, and Alice Cooper's in that as well. Seeing Alice, seeing Bowie, those men were my inspiration for looking like a woman.
Wow, and Alice did it great. Another scene in there is the Reading Festival in what was that, 81, 82?
I think it's 81.
81.
Yeah.
And
81, 82, somewhere in there.
You're being basically totally rejected by the audience. They're throwing piss bottles at you and anything else they could grab. And instead of sort of, you just go on with the show. You didn't go on with the show. You stop it and you say, hey, talk to me a little bit about the Reading experience and also just the general perseverance you must have had, because you just mentioned 10 years of not getting anywhere. Why didn't you just pack it up and go, work at Modell's or something?
Because packing it up would have meant going and working at Modell's.
Exactly.
There was many times where we sort of said, well, maybe we need to we need to pack it in, and basically the thing was, and do what? We were making money playing clubs, packing clubs, as is shown in the movie. If you're playing for the thousands of kids on a nightly basis, we were regional stars. We weren't rich by any means, but we were still making money, and the choices were limited. I did not want to go back to working on the loading dock of a department store, which was the job I had before Twisted Sister. So I just lost track of the original question, which was, sorry.
It was all about the perseverance. I mean, you had 10
years
of
perseverance, yeah.
Around.
Well, you brought to the Reading Festival, and
right.
And that was funny because people were amazed at our ability to deal with audiences, with rowdy audiences, any audience, and particularly though, looking down the barrel of the gun with a hostile Reading crowd or hostile Donington crowd or any crowd. And we had been played so many bar shows. To me, this was nothing compared to Memorial Day weekend, a $1 beer happy hour at the Osprey at Atlantic Beach. I mean, this was a drunk and rowdy crowd. That was a tough group, and you were right there. You were in a little stage. You're right within grabbing distance from these people. So we had cut our teeth, and for me as a frontman, I learned how to deal with club audiences, the toughest club audience, biker bars, and just like the rowdiest of places. So it was, to me, it was like you get a rowdy crowd. Well, basically that was, a club times 30. But it was, it was the same. It was, I wasn't overwhelmed by the number of people. I just handled it the same way. So, there's a pretty legendary deal, and I did what I did with 35,000 people at the Reading Festival. The Reading Festival was it Reading? Yeah,
it was Reading.
I was Reading at 35,000 people there. I did the same thing I did in a club with 35 people, and if someone gave me shit, I called them out.
Right.
I said, let's go, and ran off the stage to fight them. And that's what I did every night, night after night after night, fighting people in the audience for my right to be on that stage. So to me, the fact that there was tens of thousands of people who that I wanted to fight, that was just it might be a little tiring, but I was ready to handle it.
But it won the crowd over. Boy, there's so many things to ask. Let me try something current these days. What do you think of the supposed Guns N' Roses reunion or return? Is it good for rock, and are they rolling it out the right way?
I honestly have paid very little attention to it. I knew it was only a matter of time till that happened. I know that Duff's involved. I know that Slash. I know Axl's involved. I heard rumors that they're going to use the Rose and Roses drummer. They're not using Matt Sorum or Steven Adler. Is that true?
I've heard the same.
Yeah, so that seems, I could even go with Matt Sorum if you don't want to go with Adler. I understand that, but it just seems strange that they would not use one of those guys. And then is Stradlin involved?
So far, there's no word on that. There's rumors that he might be writing with the band and he might guest at shows, but and that's what I mean about the rollout. You figured, okay, you've got a show, Coachella, on sale, and in fact sold out, and yet there's no information about who, what, where, when, why. And you look at how Kiss did the reunion, and the Police, and the Eagles, and Motley Crue. They had a press conference. They laid out all the cards on the table, and people went, oh, okay, I see how this works. and this one is a mystery. Which
Yeah, well, I think it's par for the course with Guns N' Roses. They are a different animal for sure, and I think the big one, the everybody knew that the Slash Axl thing was the biggest hurdle to get over, and the fact that they've somehow gotten over that hurdle, at least that's what they're saying. Everybody's overlooking the rest because everybody else has played with Axl in some capacity at some time. So Izzy's been up there with Axl, and everybody else has, they've all worked. Actually, all the guys have worked together except for Axl and Slash. So I think people saying, hey, Axl and Slash are together. That's Jagger and Richards. That's Plant and Page. Can we get the rest of the guys? We're all hoping that they do, but those are the big two to get those guys on the same stage in the same room together, and hopefully it works out.
I mean, marketing-wise, that's all you really need. The Dee Snider Rock and Roll Christmas just finished the run in Toronto. What are the plans for that next year? Do you bring it to another city? Do you do it again? Do you wait a couple of years?
Well, I have actually have meetings next week to discuss the plans moving forward, and we're definitely moving forward. And the most preliminary talks for 2016 are a tour.
Oh, that would be great.
Doing multiple cities this year. So we'll see. So I'm waiting to have this meeting. So I really have nothing beyond that. But we came away from Toronto with a really highly polished show and rave reviews from the people we need rave reviews from, Toronto Star in particular. And that's given us the ammunition we need to continue on. So, I've got long-range plans for the Rock and Roll Christmas Tale, which does not involve me. I mean, ultimately, I want to see it, be staged in cities where I'm not there, and I don't want to go back to having Christmas at my house again. I wrote a holiday show to share my love of Christmas with everybody, and successfully killed my own Christmas with my family. Yay!
That's the way to do it. But you had
that's exactly how you do it.
But you had some great musicians in there. You had Sean Kelly, who's one of the greatest guitarists that we have in Canada. It was so good to see him in that thing. Lemmy. We touched upon Lemmy before. You've sort of credited Lemmy as sort of saving Twisted Sister, or certainly raising awareness of Twisted. How much are you going to miss him?
Lemmy and I we weren't people who saw each other regularly. But when we did see each other, there was a true connection, true respect, and a true love and friendship. And, and I'm sure you and people listening have those relationships where, you may not see a person for 3 years and all of a sudden you walk in and you go, as I was saying, it's like you feel like you virtually have not missed a day, because there's that kind of a relationship. Lemmy's passing hit me harder than anybody's passing has, harder than AJ's actually, and AJ's hit me hard in a different way, but it was it kind of blindsided me a little bit too, that it did, but. As I stated in my book and I stated in my podcast, Snider Comments, Lemmy was there for Twisted Sister at a time when we needed somebody to be there. I truly think our career could have taken a very different turn. It was a desperate time. It was, Under the Blade hadn't come out yet, and then Under the Blade came out, and then the company folded, and Lemmy was sort of like the ferryman. I don't know, the guy who's helping us across this huge body of water, this chasm, whatever it is, that's preventing us from getting to the next spot. And he's there, he's just there. And I don't even know why, but I do. He'll tell you that we blew him away. The Twisted Sister inspired him and fired him up, and he loved us, and he loved our music, and he loved what we were about, and but it was more. And one of the things, and I've talked about this again at length on my podcasts and interviews, but Lemmy, this his passing brought to light that it wasn't just me that Lemmy was like this with. It wasn't just Twisted Sister. He was like this with so many. He touched so many young bands and musicians, and not inappropriately. Lemmy would want that joke in there. He was that guy. And when you were at his memorial, and or you went online and you saw social media and you saw what people were saying about him, and you go, so I wasn't the only one that he was like this. This guy was special. And my wife Suzette, after we went to his memorial, and which was just so amazing, the Todd Singerman, his manager, did an amazing job. And he had some of the biggest rock stars in the world got up there to speak. And when I say nobodies, I don't mean that people are nobodies. Everybody's somebody, but not anything, that you would say, well, this person's just an average Joe. But that was Lemmy, and they'd get up there, and they would, eulogize him. And Lemmy, it didn't matter who you were. Lars Ulrich's story, which you probably know about, being a Motorhead fan before he was even in a band, and Lemmy being so welcoming to me and changing his life. It doesn't make any sense when you hear how generous he was to this 17-year-old snot-nosed kid. And yet he would just welcome him on the bus, welcome him backstage, welcome into the songwriting sessions for Iron Fist. What do you mean? Who? To some kid who was hanging outside? Come on in.
Yeah, and he did that to me too. I got to be the runner on a show that he did in Montreal, and he was like, "Oh, just come into the venue, come up to the dressing rooms, and you can just watch the show from the stage." And it's like, "Oh, okay, what a guy! What a nice guy this guy is."
Yeah, and it was just like, but I was, one of his minders, one of the guys who was his personal assistant, says he's like first second day. Lemmy said to him, he said, "Yeah, come on in." He goes, "Yeah, sit down." He goes, "Are you sure?" He goes, "We're supposed to be friends." And that was a weird statement. We're supposed to be friends, but and they were, and this guy could barely keep it together talking. My wife said, and this sounds ridiculous. Somebody said that. You lost me on this one, Dee. She goes, I think Lemmy may have been an angel on earth. I said, what are you talking about? I mean, you look at him. She goes, look, my wife's a spiritual person. She's not a religious person, but she believes in the afterlife, and she says, and if people who are spiritual say there are angels who walk the earth. They're embodied in human form, and their job is, they're here to help. And she goes, why do we have to assume that the angel's going to be wearing white wings and a robe? What better way to slip one in on us than put it in the gruffest human being's body, the most badass motherfucker, and then put it in Lemmy Kilmister, a true pirate of rock and roll, hard drinking, hard partying. I mean, he was an angel in a lot of ways, affecting so many people's freaking lives. I thought it was, I don't know if I agree with it, but I thought it was an interesting observation, because he certainly seemed to touch people.
Yeah, he really did. And I'll finish on this because I know we were going to keep it to half an hour. A.J. Pero, of course, passed away. From interviews that I saw, you seem to have had a certain anger at it, in the sense that he didn't take care of himself, and you were like, if you had just been smarter about it, you'd still be here, kind of. I mean, is that correct to say? Were you somewhat annoyed?
Yes, but AJ was a frustration to me in a lot of ways. It was ongoing, and frustration with love in capital L. Okay, because he was such a good guy, and he was such a talented drummer, and he did very little to preserve that, right, to take care of that. I just scratched my head. I remember when I hadn't played with him a long time, and I did the SMF thing, and I reached out to him to join me, and he came. And at first I played, I said, what I said, "You asshole," and he was like, "What?" He goes, "You were so damn good. I forgot how good you are." And he had been working in a bar filling ice trays. I was like, "Why are you working in a bar?" He goes, "Well, what am I supposed to do?" I said, "Teach drums. Join a band. Work it." I said, "You're gifted." He was a child prodigy. He played with a swing band. He toured at 10. He toured the world with an adult swing band. Okay, he worked with he trained with Gene Krupa. Okay? I said, why are you working in a bar? And he said, well, I'm just not as motivated as you. And I just went, ah! I mean, because to me, it was just infuriating. And he infuriated me that he didn't take care of himself, and again, a talented and a great guy. I said this before, I'll say it again. J.J. French, quote, the nice one died. Yes, he was the nice guy in Twisted Sister. He was the nice one. People loved him. And that outpouring came out when he passed. And it just infuriated me that he didn't use his gift more, that he didn't take care of his own health more, because he didn't have to be working in a bar filling ice trays. Okay, that was before Twisted reunited, by the way. I'm just saying, but they didn't have to be that ugliness for an AJ Pirro, and AJ Pirro did not have to die that young, leave behind that many children and that much of a economic mess that he left behind, all that stuff. It didn't have to be, and that's where the anger comes from. It just, I said, when you love people, you love make you crazy. Sure. If you don't care about them, oh well. If I didn't love them, I wouldn't be mad, because it's no skin off my nose. But the fact that I did love him and I did care about him, and he was that great a guy and that talented a guy, and I'm so glad Mike Portnoy has been shining a light on that talent. By the way, Mike's really done a lot to remind people that AJ was way more than just the beat from We're Not Gonna Take It, and it's frustrating. His death is just frustrating to me. Lemmy, Lemmy knew what he was doing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, he did.
Yeah, there was no stupidity involved. It was a choice. It wasn't laziness. It wasn't like, he just Lemmy's like, I'm fine with this. Yeah. This is what I do, and this is what I will continue to do. And his biggest frustration is in the last couple of years where they actually had to cut back on cigarettes a bit and stop drinking Jack and Coke and go to vodka and orange juice. Well, that was his idea of a healthy drink, vodka and orange juice. But he was angry that he couldn't be true to who he was. So that was a different story.
Right.
So I'm not mad at Lemmy.
And I'll finish with this. That day where I was a runner for Lemmy, he had 2 40-ounces of vodka. He drank one before the show and went and played a killer show, and he drank one after the show. And I was like, how is he not dead? Just there on that, and I was like, oh my God. But there you go.
Well, there's a story that Lemmy told me that, there's this thing where people get full blood transfusions, like people who do a lot of partying. Right. Keith Richards, notorious apparently for doing that. He tried to get that done, and the doctor said, we can't do it. He said, why? He said, we're pretty sure it'll kill you. his toxicity in his blood from the drugs and the alcohol was so high, they were fearful of the shock that the system would have if they put healthy blood in him. I mean, it was that guy. It's unbelievable. And we could talk. I don't mind talking to you. I just did an interview with a guy who asked me like the stupidest questions. So there was one of the stories that was told. There were so many great stories that were told at his eulogy. I don't know if you saw it online or whatever, if you watched it, but they talked about showing up at the invited to party at the Motorhead bus, and they walk over with 2 6-packs, and they walk in, and Lemmy has a case of Jack Daniels, and they literally have a pallet filled with cases of beer. And these guys, they felt like such idiots with their 6-pack of beer showing up at the Motorhead bus, So, my last thing with Lemmy, and this is, I just got to say this, when we walked into the memorial, they were serving shots of Jack Daniels in his honor in the church. So as you walked in, there was no regular memorial service. And my wife said, and we don't drink, and she was like, should we take a shot in his honor? I said, listen, my first time with Lemmy, we were together hanging out. He pulled me into the side room. He broke out some speed. He chopped up 2 lines, handed me the rolled up pound note, and I said, Lemmy, I don't get high. And that would turn a lot of people off. Again, we talked about why did you lie about getting high? Because that was a turnoff to people. People who get high don't really like people who aren't high.
Right.
And I said, but at this point, I'd gotten past it. And I said, look, I am who I am. I am on me. And this is who I am. And I said, I don't get high. And Lemmy looked at me and goes, Okay, more for me. and that was our relationship. He got high around me all the time, and he just said, "Hey, I don't got to share with this guy. This is my perfect friend." So I said, "I don't think Lemmy expects me to drink because there's more for him." So anyway, on that note, Lemmy, God bless you,
God
and
bless
we love you. We miss you, and go everybody. Check out, look, I can't, we keep saying we're going to end, but there's something that needs to be said about going back to We Are Twisted Effing Sister.
Right.
And that is, this is the story that people don't know. And there's a disconnect between East Coast rockers and West Coast rockers and the rest of the world. Because people in the Northeast, your Bon Jovis and your Kicks and your Cinderellas and Poisons and bands like that, they were very aware of Twisted Sister. We were, and that includes Anthrax and Carnivore and, and Overkill. Everybody came to see Twisted Sister. We were the band to beat. We were the local legends. And they're all aware, and so to them we were a much bigger entity. When you hear those people, those musicians talk, they talk about us in a way that confuses people from the West Coast and from the rest of the world who just discovered us in 1984 when Stay Hungry came out. They go, why do they have such reverence for this band? There's reverence because Twisted Sister has had that influence and longevity that we never had in the public eye into the mainstream rock world, but we had it in the Northeast. And, as my son said, Dad, this is a story that needs to be told. It is a Rocky-esque story. And, 10 years playing thousands of live shows before the world knows you, that is an exercise in stupidity, but it's also, you want to talk about an unwillingness to give up. It's inspirational on that level. Just like how many people could just keep getting up every day and say, I'm going to do it and do it again for 10 years before you finally get acknowledged. That's a story that needs to be told, and that's the story that is told. It's not about Twisted Sister once the world found us. It's about Twisted Sister before the world found us.
Yeah, and especially back in those days, you had scouts that went out to the bars, and they'd say, okay, we like this band, we sign them, then you got the label deal, and off you go. Now you can be 10 years in a bar because there's no record labels that are out there, but even then, it must have been even more frustrating. You're like, why is Kiss getting signed? Why are the New York Dolls getting signed? Why am I in a club in Long Island, for Christ's sake?
Right. Why aren't we getting, and maybe we weren't ready. Maybe it wasn't our time. Right. They talked about the fact that my anger grew and my songwriting changed. I listened to the early stuff, those Club Days discs. They're terrible. I wrote them. They're terrible. Right. No wonder we didn't get signed. So we weren't ready. The time wasn't right. Whatever it was, and we weren't meant to happen then. But at the same time, this is that. And again, this is a story that I'm glad. I hope people will learn. I hope people will know, because it will change the way you think about my band and the way you view my band. I remember I was talking to Jack Irons. You know who Jack Irons is?
No.
Drummer from the Chili Peppers, drummer from Pearl Jam, drummer from 11. Okay, he's a Seattle-based drummer. And we met, and we were talking. And long story short, as we were talking, he starts, something comes up about Twisted being in the 70s when we were playing, and he goes, 70s? And I was like, yeah. I said, I joined in 76, the band formed in 73. He goes, I thought you guys just got together in like 82 and jumped on the bandwagon. And I said, no, dude, we created that bandwagon. There was no bandwagon to jump on. And he looked at me and he said, well, that changes everything. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, I viewed you guys completely in the wrong light. I completely misjudged your band, and this changes everything. And I hope when people see this, We Are Twisted Effing Sister, they'll go, wow, I did not know this band did this, worked that hard, went through so much, and they deserve everything they ever got, and more.
Yeah, and that perseverance that you displayed then, even at 61, you've just never left it. When you get on stage, whether it was at Heavy Montreal where I saw you last, you didn't just call it in. The books, the rock and roll Christmas, the podcast, you just keep going. It's just this constant perseverance. There's never enough. You don't just go, all right, I've done it. It's good. I can just go.
Yeah, well, everybody keeps asking. I ask a lot, what motivates me, and my quote is 10% inspiration, 90% desperation. After losing it all, and it's not a joke. After losing it all, I just holy crap! I never want to have that happen to me again. What happened to me in the '90s? I was forced to my knees. I had to crawl, to get back on my feet and get back into the limelight and become successful again. I never want that to happen again. So it really is. There's a desperation. My wife says, "You're never going to retire." I said, "Because I'm afraid." I'm afraid. But that doesn't mean I am going to retire from Twisted Sister. I just want to do other things, And we'll be talking because I just signed a new record deal. We're not going to talk about that now, but yes, I did. I've already been recording. It's a whole new direction. It's not metal. It's not metal. It's not Broadway. It's rock. But I've been approached by some top songwriters who said, "Dee, you're iconic, and we think we can bring you to the masses with contemporary rock music." And I was like, "Let's do it."
Which is incredible because we've done interviews for the last 15 years, and you said, no, new songs are a pee break. Nobody wants new songs, and you were genuinely just not interested in writing a new song. And
I haven't.
Yeah, I know. And so
no, they came to me. These are people who write for Kanye. They write for Roar, for Katy Perry. They write for Pink. They write for Taylor Swift. They're top pop songwriters. And they said, we're talking about now, but they said, "Listen, this guy's name is Damon Ranger." And he said, he says, "You're iconic. You're the voice of rebellion. And I think with the right songs, you could reach a whole new audience, a mainstream rock audience." And I said, "You got songs?" He goes, "Yeah." He says, I said, let's give it a try. So we demoed one song and called "We Are the Ones," which is a real active rock. It's hard, but it's not metal, and it came out great. So we went in the studio, recorded 4 more songs, and I just signed a deal with Sony Red and Frontier in Europe.
Europe, yeah.
And I've signed 2 deals. Actually, I'm not sure about Frontier, if that's the right name. Is there another name over there?
Frontier's records out of Italy with Serafino.
Yeah, no, I met a guy named Max. No, not Frontier. Another label. Okay. I hope I didn't lose my deal over there. But I've just signed deals, and we're going back to finish the studio to finish the album at the end of February. And I'm not sure when we're going to release it, but it's a new direction. And I really was packing it in until this guy approached me and said, "What do you think?" And I said, "Well, let's give it a shot." I mean, to me, I like the word new. I like something, contemporary. And now that argues with the point. Someone's screaming at the radio, their iPhone or whatever, screaming, "You said no new music." Yeah, no. For me, I said I can't record. When Damon said, "So do you want to write with me on this?" I said, "Oh no." I said, "I don't know what's new." I said, I know how to write old. I said, "I don't know how to write new music." So I said, "I don't want anything to do with the writing process." He says, "Create some songs, and if I can feel inspired by them, I will sing them." And the stuff is really great. It's got the attitude. It's not thrashy. It's not metal, but it's got attitude. It's got my attitude. It's anthemic, and we'll see what happens. But I actually came up with the album title today. Now.
The album title. The album title is going to be Now, or you just came up with the idea now?
No, I just today told my manager, I said I want to call the album Now.
There you go.
Dee Snider, Now. So we'll see. I don't know but the deals are signed, and we're halfway through the record, and I want to talk about that now too. Geez, Lafon, you can get anybody talking.
I know. It's a skill, but it's genuinely what's the word? Exciting, I guess, to hear you be enthralled about actually new music, because we've done, like I said, 10 years or 15 years of interviews where you poo-pooed it. You said, hey, and you weren't wrong. I mean, a lot of these bands, heritage acts, whatever you want to call them, people want to go see the hits, whether it's Rock and Roll All Night or We're Not Gonna Take It or, Dream On. And everything else, they're like, listen, I got to get the kids with the babysitter. I don't have time for the new song. Got to go.
Well, that's this. Understand. I mean, this is very strange. I mean, this left field. I actually was on the Mancow show in Chicago, and Damon Ranger was on the show too, and he pulled me aside, and Damon has won Emmys, an Oscar for Life of Pi, and Grammys. I mean, he's for his songwriting. And he approached me on this, and to me this was challenging because I'm not going out doing a Twisted Sister show with a new song. If I play out, it's going to be just new music, and yeah, I'll probably do When I Can Take It, I Want to Rock as an encore, but as far as it's just going to be the new sound, no more headbanging, no more throwing my body on the ground, but it'll still be an intense rocking performance, but it's going to be more mainstream. I'm trying to, I've been challenged to transform myself. At the ripe old age of 61, and I like being challenged.
Yeah, that's the key word. You were challenged in the clubs to succeed. You were challenged to do the rock and roll Christmas thing. You were challenged to write a book, and now you're challenged, and you respond to challenges. You don't respond to, let's paint by numbers kind of thing.
It was almost a dare, you know. It was a dare. It was like, I dare you to record something out of your, I don't want to say it's out of my wheelhouse because it's my voice, but this stuff is very different. It's edgy. It's, think Foo Fightery, think Queen Stadium anthem-y, think, in that kind of mainstream rocky. So it's still crunchy and it's still got attitude, but it's not 80s rock. It's contemporary sounding stuff. As a matter of fact, when they first went out with them and played it for record companies, people go, "Who's that?" They liked it, but they didn't know who it was until Damon said, "That's Dee Snider." And they're like, "Holy crap."
Well, let me ask you about that. Are you afraid that your name carries a certain, not a cachet, but people think, "Oh, it's Dee Snider. He's an old guy from Twisted Sister."
Yeah. No, it's a problem. It's a problem with the Rock and Roll Christmas Tale. We had a bunch of consultants up to see the show, and we had some marketing issues up in Toronto that we weren't happy with. And they said, "Well," Dee, there's good news and bad news. The good news is everybody knows Dee Snider. The bad news is everybody thinks they know Dee Snider." And he goes, and he says, and if you ask them to write a list of what Dee Snider is, not one of them would write family-friendly holiday musical under your name. So this is so will they be able to say, "Oh, Dee Snider, new, contemporary rock music"? Well, can we accept Dee Snider? Now, so far, like I said, we demoed and we got record deals. So we've got people who see it and hear it and believe it. So we continue down this path, and we will see. We will see.
It's amazing, and I'll finish this with a story from a Toronto band, a band named.
Now, let me just say that people listening are screaming. That's the 18th time they say we'll finish this.
I know.
People, okay, this is a big game.
This is it.
All right, this is what I want you to do. Okay, I want you to take this bit of tape I'm going to do right now. I put it at the very beginning. Okay. Hey everybody, this is Dee Snider. I'm about to do an interview with Mitch. During this interview, we attempt to end the interview a number of times. I wanted you to play a drinking game. Every time we say the phrase, "We're going to wrap it up with this," or "We're going to finish with this," I want you to take a shot. I promise by the end of the show, you will be blotto. Okay, now start the show.
Yeah, now start the show. But it's just funny because there was a band up in Canada called Harem Scarum. They've been around for 30 years. They brought their song to Q107 in Toronto, which I'm sure you're aware of.
Yeah.
And they said, no, you're Harem Scarum from the late 80s. We're not playing this. They resubmitted the song under the name Rubber. It went to number 1. And then people went, "Boy, who's this Rubber band? We don't know who they are. Let's get them on for an interview." And they went, "Oh, look, it's Harry Hess from Harem Scarum. God damn it, you got us." And it's just weird that because you're Dee Snider, the people are going to say,
Yeah. So you're right. So the question is, can people view me, and this has been the challenge of my career, and I've gotten them to view me as a radio personality. I've got them to view me as a reality show personality. I've got them to view me as an actor some people at least.
Yep.
So but it's a challenge. But that is my greatest inspiration. Is it a challenge? Is it? I guess maybe I just don't want it to be too easy. I don't know, but as but the challenge. That's how you get me back in the ring. Challenge me.
Yeah.
So I've been challenged, and now I'm challenging us to end this show.
Yeah. Let's do that. We'll do it now. We'll end it now.
Okay, Mitch, a pleasure always to talk to you. I'll be talking to you again when it's time to release Dee Snider now.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dee. Always a pleasure.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now. And there you have it, folks, my interview with the one, the only Dee Snider of Twisted Sister. If you want to follow me online, please head over to Twitter at Mitch Lafon. If you like what you hear and you want to support the podcast, I do have a PayPal account, mitchminute@aol.com. Thank you for everything. Thank you to Dee Snider and all those who make it possible to bring this to you every week. There you go. Bye for now.